Now, today's class is about allowances, the second type of allowances. Exemption of allowances linked with actual expenditure incurred under section 10, subsection 14 and 1. So, the rule is unexempted amount is taxable. That means it's not fully exempted to allowances, but it is an partly a taxable allowance. So here we have some points which explains about allowance treatment in point of tax. So here actual allowance received minus exempted amount. So the remaining amount is taxable amount. If the details of actual amount spent is not given, then make an assumption that the employee spent the entire amount of allowance received, and such as the actual amount received becomes fully exempted. So if there is no any information about allowances, that means how much is spent and how much amount is remaining. So then we have to treat that the total amount is spent by the employee. Now there are different types of different types of allowances. So let's see what are they. Uniform allowance, helper allowance, daily allowance, conveyance allowance, transfer allowance, and academic allowance. So these are all partly taxable allowances. Unspent amount is taxable. Let's see the purpose and related points. So uniform allowance, the allowance is given to purchase and maintain uniform dress for discharging official duties or specific dress to wear on official and ceremonial functions. So there in some organizations there will be a special dress code which explains and which differentiate from others. So they will follow some dress code. For that dress code is also that dress code can also be provided by the employer for employees. So thus that dress allowance is fully taxable and employee cannot claim any exemption. So it is fully taxable and there is no any chance of claiming exemption. Next, helper and assistant allowance. The allowance is given to seek the help and assistance from a person to discharge the official duties. Lunch and dinner allowance is fully taxable, but the boarding and lodging are can be claimed under exemption. Next, conveyance allowance. Conveyance means a mode of transport, an allowance given to meet expenditure on conveyance for discharging official duties. So this allowance is given if conveyance is not provided by the employer. So if he is not providing any conveyance, that means transportation charges and the other charges, then the allowance is given. If employee uses his own motorcycle car for official purpose, then expenditure incurred for the same shall be allowed as exemption. Exemption to travel between residence and office is not treated as conveyance expenses, but when it is treated as conveyance allowance means the person, the employee must use his personal motor car or motorbike for official purpose, then he will get the exemption as allowance. Next, travel or transfer allowance. To meet the cost of travel on tour, which includes packing, transporting of personal effects on transfer of employment from one city to another city, those expenses are also paid by the employer. Travel kit allowance is tax free. Tooth powder, brush, toilet soap box, shaving set, these are the exempt allowances. Academic and professional development research allowances. Allowances to give and enrich academic research and professional knowledge for the company development. So this allowance is meant for employee only and not for his family members. Not for family members. So these are for only employee to enrich his own professional skills towards betterment of for his career. Next is exemption of allowance not linked with the actual expenditure under section 10 subsection 14(2). So rule is exemption is given without any preconditions, and for such each allowance maximum exemption limit is mentioned in the act. So here children educational allowance, actual allowance received B 100 rupees per month per child for 2 children. So the term children includes adopted children but does not include grandchildren. So this least amount is exempted. Maximum exemption limit, statutory limit, allowance received. So maximum is exempted. Next, children hostel allowance. Actual allowance received and 300 per month per child for 2 children. So this is also maximum amount, whichever is the maximum that is exempted. Next, truck driver air hostess allowances. 70% of allowance received and 10% per month. So maximum is given as exemption. And transport allowance. For traveling between residence and the place of work. So it is only for between place of work and residence. If the assessee is normal person, fully taxable. If the person is physically challenged, physically handicapped, blind person, 3,200 per month is exempted. Next, special allowances. These allowances are given to employee working in special situations like climate, place, nature of job, etc. So here, let's see, composite hill compensatory allowance, snowbound area allowance, generally given to the employees working in the northeastern states or snowbound areas. The exemption differ from place to place, and the maximum exemption is 7,000. And border area allowance or remote area allowance or difficult area allowance or disturbed area allowance, generally given to the employees working in islands, borders and areas of North India. This exemption differs from place to place again, and maximum exemption is 1,300 per month. And tribal area allowance in the state of MP, Tamil Nadu, UP, Karnataka, Tripura, Assam, West Bengal, Bihar and Orissa. In these states, this tribal area allowance is given, and the exemption rupees is 200 per month. And underground allowance. This allowance is given to the employees who are working in unnatural climate underground. Employees working in the mines, and the exemption is 800 per month. Helmet allowance. For colliery mines employees it is tax free, but for the employees it is fully taxable. These are the different types of allowances which are given to the employees depending upon different situations and different nature of work. Depending upon the allowances are given, and the exemption is also allowed. Next topic is perquisites. Perquisites means any kind of benefit provided by the employer to an employee on his family or his family member, either in cash or in kind. So these perquisites not only include the employee, but family members will also benefited by these perquisites. So employee members include spouse, children and their spouses, parents, dependents and Servants are also included in the family members. So perquisites are included in salary income only when they are received by an employee from his present, former, prospective employer. So these are directly included in salary from his present or former are going to be prospective employer. So whatever he received in the form of perquisites, those are included in income. Perquisites received from a person with other than employer are taxable under the head income from other sources. So when perquisites only given as exempted when the employee received perquisites from employer, but if any perquisites are received by others, then these are treated as income from other sources. Next, perquisite is an outcome of an agreement between employee and employer or as part of the service condition. So it is mentioned before when the employee is appointing into his designation, and it is an agreement between employer and employee as part of service conditions. Here we have some important information about perquisites. Any facility provided or benefited extended to an employee by the employer is known as perquisites. So here, if the cash is given towards any facility or benefit, then it is known as allowance. So here in perquisites, the employer will pay by himself, but instead of any cash is given to the employee, then it is called allowance. But without giving any cash, if the employer is providing any benefit, then it is called as perquisite. Next is different types of perquisites. Here, perquisites and fringe benefits accessible to all employees. So there are some perquisites which are taxable. Rent-free accommodation. There are different types of rent-free accommodation provided by the employer to employee, with furniture, without furniture, semi-furnished. So these are the different types of accommodation which the company will provide to employee. So that rent is paid by the employer. So accommodation is not only used by employee, but his family member will also stay in that accommodation. So this is one of the fringe benefit, and it is provided by the employer to employee. And holiday facilities. In some companies, holiday facilities are also given by the employer to employee and his family. These are holiday facilities like official tours, private tours, official tours extended as vacation. So it depends upon the type of tour the employee is going for, and the employee will give holiday facility to employee. Next, free meals. Refreshment snacks are tax-free perquisites. Refreshment snack, tea or soft drink provided employer after the office hours are taxable perquisites. And if the same refreshment snacks are provided by the employer to the employee outside the after office hours and outside the office, then those are taxable. So the next is medical facilities. Medical facilities means reimbursement facility is also there, and health insurance can also be paid by the employer for employees, families, spouse, dependent, children. These are free perquisite under section 80D. And gifts gifts given by the employer are exempted. The value of 5,000 rupees up to 5,000 rupees is exempted. The excess amount is taxable perquisite. So the next is club membership. If the club membership provided by the employer to employee personal purpose, then it is taxable. If it is official purpose, it is exempted from tax. And credit cards. So credit card official purpose is exempted perquisite value, which is paid by the employer. And if it is personal purpose, then he has to it is taxable. And next, insurance premium paid by the employer on the life of the employee is exemption, is given as exempted perquisites. And personal monetary obligation and use of movable assets. So these are movable assets, can be by motorcycle or motor car. So if the motor car and motorcycle is provided by the employer for official purpose, then it is exempted, because those charges are paid by the employer. If motorcycle is used for personal purpose, then the amount is taxable, becomes taxable perquisite. Next, perquisite taxable in special cases and employees. The value of the following perquisite becomes taxable income only when the employee is satisfying one of the following conditions. When employee director, so if an employee is also director of the company, then the perquisites paid for that employees are exempted. And if an employee is a shareholder of 20% in the company, then the perquisites, so then he becomes special employee. So the whatever the perquisites given to special employee given as exemption. And income from salary is more than 50,000 per annum, that person becomes a specific employee. So these are tax fully exempted from tax. And there are some other provisions are also making the persons as special employees. Provisions of car and other conveyances. If a provision is given to the employee personal use, then it is taxable perquisite. For official use, it is a exempted perquisite. And provision of service of servants. So this service of servants is also for official purpose it is exempted. For personal purpose it is taxable. And supply of gas and electricity and water, this is a taxable perquisite. And educational facilities, these are the exempted perquisite, because all employee will get these educational facilities from the employer. And transport facilities allowed by transport organization. So if it is official purpose, it is exempted. Unofficial purpose is taxable. The next is special perquisites. Allotment of or transfer of sweaty equity shares. If the sweaty equities, is there any difference between fair market value and actual amount paid by the employer? The difference amount is taxable, and employer contribution to recognized and approved superannuation fund. This is perquisite uh, one 1,50,000 is exempted. If it is more than the 1,50,000, then it is a taxable perquisite. And a tax-free perquisites and fringe benefits to all employee. Expenditure on food is fully exempted. Educational benefits and rent-free accommodation, medical facilities, payment of residential telephone or cell phone bills. If it is official purpose, then it is exempted. Employer providing laptop, computer for official purpose or personal purpose are exempted from tax. From perquisites, we have very important perquisite that which we have to concentrate on, that is rent-free accommodation. So if the employer provides a house or a flat to an employee for his residential purpose without charging or collecting nominal or part of the rent, is called rent-free accommodation. This is the facility which is provided by the employer for a employee for the employee's residential purpose. So there are two types of accommodation which is provided by employer, that is unfurnished accommodation and furnished accommodation. Unfurnished accommodation means without any furniture, only providing accommodation with empty rooms. And furnished accommodation will have furniture which are useful for household. Here we have to concentrate on special notes that which is any accommodation. First, it has to be valued as unfurnished, and the furniture value is added. First, when we are calculating rent-free accommodation value perquisite, we have to value the house without furniture. Then we have to add the furniture value to the value which is calculated earlier. So let's see how the unfurnished and furnished accommodation perquisite values are calculated. Now, valuation of rent-free accommodation perquisite, the employees are divided into two types: government employees and non-government employees or other employees. Now let's see for the government employees. Government employees are central government employees and state government employees. Now see how the accommodation is valued. Unfurnished accommodation. If the employer providing unfurnished accommodation, then the rent paid by the government is taken. If furnished accommodation, so first we have to take the rent fixed by government plus 10% per annum of on furniture provided or hired by the hire charges by the employer. So first to central government employees, the unfurnished accommodation is valued as first rent paid by we have to take the rent paid by the employer plus 10% per annum of furniture charges which the employer paid on behalf of employee. Now let's see for other employees. Other employees are like semi-government employees, employees working in local authorities, and foreign government employees, private sector employees, and public sector employees are called as other employees. Here also there are two types of accommodations are provided to the employees. First is unfurnished accommodation and furnished accommodation. Again here unfurnished accommodation has two types. First one is own accommodation of employer and rent hired accommodation. Own accommodation of employer and rent or hired accommodation. Now let's see how the perquisite value for own accommodation of employer and rented accommodation. Accommodation owned by the employer. The calculation of perquisite is by taking the population of the city. So here they are taking parameters of 2001 census of city. Here not first situation is not exceeding 10 lakh population for city. So if the 10 lakh population is there in the city, 7.5% of salary is taken as a perquisite value, and the second situation is between 10 lakhs and 25 lakhs, then the perquisite value is 10% of the salary. If the population is exceeds 25 lakh, then 15% of salary is taken as perquisite value for accommodation owned by the employer. Now the second situation is when the accommodation hired, the least of the following are taken as perquisite value: the rent paid by the employer and 15% of salary. These are the two situations. Now perquisite value when a furnished accommodation is provided by the employer for other employees. Any accommodation first valued as unfurnished and the furniture value is added as 10% per annum of original cost of furniture. And in furnished accommodation, there are two situations where the perquisite value is calculated for tax purpose. When the employer provides accommodation in a hotel, so the least of the following will be taken as perquisite value: 24% of salary or actual charges paid are payable to hotel. So from the values of these two, least of the following will be taken. And accommodation provided in a remote area. If employer providing accommodation in remote area, then it becomes tax free perquisite, because government is providing development policies. So if any employer providing accommodation in remote areas, it becomes tax free.